The night before the celebration in Imperia, you each rest in your respective locations, well deserving of the sleep that comes to all of you. But even apart, each of you find yourselves in a foggy expanse that you recognize. The final vision granted to you by the Eclipse shards is upon you, as a sixth rune joins the others in the dreamscape around you. The fog begins to culminate into a setting one final time, though you hear the sounds of war before you see them. A battle on a scale unlike any you have bore witness to before. On darkened, barren soil, thousands of mortal kind clash against legions upon legions of undead scourge, empowered by a sickening blue flame driving them forward. In the skies above them, you spot metallic dragons attempting to clear the skies of shadowy creatures none of you recognize. Horrid abominations, seemingly born of the void itself. Their shrieks occasionally drown out the sound of battle below, as they swoop down to prey upon any humanoid unfortunate enough to be in their path. In the center of the chaos lies a familiar shape. A looming black tower, its apex curled in the shape of a clawed hand, appears to be the focus of this battle. The Dreadspire. Watching the armies of the Order fighting valiantly, blade and magic arcing wildly across the battlefield, it suddenly becomes apparent that Mithra's armies are not fighting to assault the tower, but to protect it. Though it is clear that they will not be able to hold out for much longer against the continuously bolstered scourge. And as a flash of lightning suddenly arcs across the top of the spire, it becomes clear why the Order's forces have rallied around the Black Tower. As your vision is thrust upward, you find yourselves as observers of the Order's final stand against the screaming tyrant atop the Dreadspire itself. As the 6 heroes of Crescentian legend position themselves around the terrible figure of Nex, it is clear that they, too, are fighting a losing battle. Teg Trickfoot, one arm hanging loosely at her halfling side, desperately recites a magical incantation from her tome, sending a massive bolt of lightning radiating with power towards the fallen ancient. With a sly grin, Nex simply backhands the bolt, sending it into the chest of Golag Eagle-Eye, who falls smoking to the floor of the tower. Before Teg can even scream in remorse, the friends Alethar Balefrost and Telman Brightforge leap at the indifferent despot, their legendary weapons shining through the surrounding darkness. Telman is suddenly pulled back in midair towards a small vortex of manipulated gravity before he is thrown to the ground by it. Alethar's blade is caught by Nex, who seems to admire it for a moment before it is shattered with a simple twist of his wrist. Alethar himself is thrown towards Mithra Crescentia, who tries to cushion the impact for her friend. Nex chases his throw with a torrent of blue flame that swarms over the human and elf, its crackling sound drowning out their pain cries. Obviously not used to wielding Daybreak with his left hand, a bloodied Tauren Firagon nevertheless raises the sword skyward to channel its healing energies for his desperate friends. Nex simply responds with a "no" as shadowy chains suddenly appear from the tower floor and restrain the exhausted warrior, binding his left arm and right stub. Finally, Nex simply directs his gaze over to Teg, who looks back in terror and drops her book frozen in fear. Satisfied, Nex smiles, and you all watch as he channels an abhorrent purple orb in his clawed hands. After a moment, just as Mithra and Alethar are beginning to recover, Nex's orb splits into 6 ghastly tendrils, each attaching itself to a member of the Order. While the others writhe in agony as corrupting energies begin to flow into them, Mithra manages to stagger to her feet as Nex simply laughs.
And so you all finally come to understand that it could have only ever ended this way. Did you honestly believe you could stand against me? That your pathetic little club had some shadow of a chance against me? I am next. I am Master of the Void, Sorcerer of Eld, the Lord of all Arcos. And you are nothing. Nothing but children playing at being heroes. No. It could have never ended any other way than this, with you under my heel, in my grasp, struggling, screaming, waiting to see which of you succumbs first. Fight it all you like. You cannot escape. No one can save you. And yet, no questions remain unanswered. No doubts linger. You are Arcos' greatest champions. You overcame every challenge I laid before you. My mightiest servants have fallen before your relentless onslaught, your unbridled fury. Is it truly righteousness that drives you? I wonder. You taught them well, Mithra. Taught them to hate. You may not have delivered my daughter unto me, but you did deliver the greatest fighting force this world has ever known, right into my hands. Exactly as I intended. You shall be rewarded for your unwitting sacrifice. Watch now as I turn your friends into my champions. They will shroud this world in chaos and destruction. Arcos' fall will come at their hands. And you...
Interrupting his own monologue, Nex's triumphant face suddenly becomes curious as he hovers down to Mithra's level.
I sense another pocket of anima within you. You're with child, aren't you? Oh, I understand, my dear. Better than you know. The fear that accompanies it. The terrible burden of parenthood. Here,
Nex proclaims, beginning to reach out a hand towards the now trembling Mithra.
let me relieve you of that burden.
Across the tower's apex, Torn looks on in horror before he quickly glances down at Daybreak at his side.
Light, grant me one final blessing. Give me the strength to shatter these bonds!
As Torn's shackles are suddenly broken by a burst of radiant energy, he gives a mighty cry as he leaps across the tower's apex and connects with the distracted tyrant. There is no pain on his face, only shock and confusion as Nex watches his right hand fall with a dull thud onto the tower's floor. As Nex continues to stare in utter disbelief where his right hand once was, Torn drops his sword and produces an all too familiar black object. The colorful runes upon it begin to glow a multicolored light, and suddenly that same light begins to envelop the other members of the Order. Mithra seems to realize what is happening, and reaches out for Torn in protest.
Torrin!
But then she is gone, along with the rest of Torn's companions, vanishing in a brilliant flash of magical energy. Only Torn and Nex remain atop the tower, the latter now finally turning to face the injured warrior.
Well, that's ironic. I'm impressed, boy. But whatever trinket you managed to scrounge up will not save you.
As the stone continues to channel energy, you can see that using it is having a visible effect on Torn. The powerful energies within seem to be too much for one mortal to handle. But he continues nonetheless, staring straight into the burning eyes of Nex.
You wanted your daughter, didn't you?
The amused face of Nex slowly sours as realization sets in. But before he can react, a stunning chromatic beam shoots out from the Eclipse Stone, impacting Nex as it begins pushing him back. Behind him, you all feel the fabric of the mortal realm shift as a horrible screaming sound precedes a tear in the barrier of providence. Nex looks behind him to see a gateway into the yawning void, a terrible vortex of darkness awaiting him. Pressing against the chromatic beam, he turns to face Torin.
Did she promise you victory, Torin? Did that stone fill you with a sense of hope? You should know that even stones, too, can lie.
You watch as Nex seemingly lets go, allowing the beam to push him into the open rift. And as suddenly as it had appeared, the rift is gone, leaving Torin to sink to the ground, his arm burning in freshly covered runes. Below him, you can all feel the tower begin to quake and glow, as if about to explode with rage at the loss of its dark master. Further below at the tower's base, the sounds of retreat are being sounded, the Black Empire forces offering no resistance, seemingly having lost the will to fight. As Torin lies next to the stone, it is clear that he is dying, regardless of the impending doom the now volatile tower will bring. Lying his remaining hand on the Eclipse stone, he manages to utter the words,
"Thank you,"
as he closes his eyes, awaiting the end. And as the vision begins to fade, as it has times before, you all manage to glimpse one last thing. The hand of Nex, freshly severed beside Torin, twitches, and the vision ends with the sound of the dread spire exploding, leaving each of you in total darkness before you awaken.